And we are back. The NFL draft season is officially underway here at St. Joe's Media. We had our previous episode. My brother came on, but guys, let's be honest. I don't think we mentioned a single prospect from this class. So let's really call this our first NFL draft episode. I'm Ben Shaddock, joined by Matt Freeman, Will Krakowski, and Jack Cundler. And what we wanted to hit on first is I think it's on everyone's minds. It's how the draft starts. They're on the clock at the moment. What should the Bears do in this draft? For us, we really feel like they have three different options. We'll go over all three of them, and then we'll go over later on what we would do if we were in the front office over at Chicago. So our very first option, if the Bears choose to stay at one, they don't trade back, they don't do any of that, they just stay at one, who should they take? So Freeman, I'll throw it to you first.
Yeah, so I'm going back and forth as of right now. I'm going to lean towards the unpopular decision of Will Anderson, the defensive end out of Alabama. I just think that he's a little bit more versatile than Jalen Carter. I like him a little bit more as a prospect, but I don't think you can go wrong with either.
Well,
yeah, no, I'm definitely would rather go with Jalen Carter. I just think he almost covers two positions by the fact that he's just so dominant. He's going to stop the run. He's going to bull rush in. He's really a stud. But the off-field, controversies is kind of making me want to lean towards Will Anderson. As Freeman said, he really does do it all. So I would be fine going with either, but preference, I would definitely take Jalen Carter.
Jack?
Yeah, me too. I'd rather take Jalen Carter. I just think he's improved a lot to the last 3 years. He's gotten better every single year, and his pass rush and his run defense has just always been the best in college football. So I'd rather Jalen Carter.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Jack and Will here as well. I mean, yes, edge is more valuable to me at least than interior D-line, but I mean, you look at a guy like Jalen Carter in terms of his production in college and his tools, I can't find anything significant that is a weakness for him. There's not much wrong I can pinpoint. So, yeah, I think if they do stay at one, which you'll see later, it's not our favorite option for them. I think Carter is an incredible option. For the Bears right now, team needs are just all over the place, almost every position, honestly. So I think just taking the best guy available would be their best bet. So yeah, Jalen Carter, a little sprinkle of Will Anderson. It would be fun to see if them stay at one, but it would also be fun. They could do this at one. They could also do this after trading back. What if they draft a quarterback? I'm sure we're going to express some distaste, as Freeman's already doing right there. But I mean, guys, the quarterbacks in this class were solid. They're nothing crazy. It's not Trevor Lawrence. It's not Justin Fields, who we got right here. Hey, he had a breakout year for the Bears, but some people are saying, hey, he's not that great of a passer. You're going to see it right here. Just incredible in the pocket. I mean, his legs, 4.40. He's just outstanding. But it took him a little while to get there. Like I said before, not the greatest with his arm. So, Freeman, I mean, let us know what you would do if they were to draft a quarterback, who you would take maybe, and I mean, what you think, obviously, if they should draft a quarterback.
Yeah, so first off, I'm really not a fan of this decision to draft a quarterback if they were to make this decision. I mean, the Chicago Bears clearly have a lot of holes. They have a young star at quarterback, Justin Fields, and still wind up with the worst record in the league, getting the number one pick. There's clearly so many problems with this roster, and quarterback is not one of them. So I don't really understand why you would draft a quarterback here when you already have a star in Justin Fields, especially when there's really no generational talent in this quarterback class for this draft class. So I'm not a fan of it. If I were to draft a quarterback for the Chicago Bears, I'm going to say either Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, because they're more of pure passers versus Will Levis and Anthony Richardson are more projects. So, if they do draft a quarterback, it shows to me that they want a more polished passer, which is not what Fields has shown so far. So if they get a quarterback, I would take Stroud or Bryce Young. But me personally, I'm not a fan of it.
Will?
Yeah, no, I gotta agree with Freeman. The only reason I would get a new quarterback is if I'm trying to, completely switch up the scheme. Try to go away from the run game. So to me, I would even try to, I would take Bryce Young out of the conversation. I feel like that would just be a waste of a pick almost. There's no reason to – I believe that Justin Fields has a higher ceiling, so I believe it'd be a downgrade. There's no reason to downgrade a quarterback and still have kind of a similar scheme of a more mobile quarterback, I would rather have a guy who could sit in the pocket and deliver, amazing passes, great accuracy. So if I were the Bears, I definitely would trade out of the number 1 pick, try to move to 4, move with the Colts, and try to grab C.J. Stroud there, because that's really the only option that they would have other than keeping Fields.
I hate this scenario so much. Like, I don't even want to answer your question because I don't even want to think about that scenario. But like, when you think about it, the Bears have never had a good QB in franchise history. When they won in '85, they had Jim McManahan, who wasn't good at all. They've had Jay Cutler, Jim Harbaugh. They're not good QBs at all. They've never had a superstar QB. And when they finally get somebody like Justin Fields, who showed promise that if you build around him, he could turn into a superstar QB. Why is there ever a thought that you could move on from him? There shouldn't ever be a thought. Now, I'll take the scenario that he requests a trade or something. Then you draft Bryce Young at this point. He's the best QB in the draft. I think you just have to go with him. If that ever happened, I don't think it ever should happen, though.
Yeah, and I want to back Justin Fields here a little bit. The fact that we're even having this conversation is, I really just don't understand it. The Chicago Bears, poor O-line, probably the worst weapons in the entire NFL, terrible coaching, and Justin Fields still manages to have, a very promising season as a young quarterback. You really got to surround him with some weapons, with some protection, with some better coaching before you can really evaluate him as a quarterback. So to jump ship on Justin Fields so early without really seeing what he can do in a quality NFL offense would be foolish to me. So I really don't see why the Bears would draft a quarterback here.
Yeah, I'll actually shed some light on this take of the Bears drafting quarterback. Again, would I do it if I was in their shoes? No, I think there's a lot better options. But if they do choose to go this route, I don't think it necessarily means Justin Fields is off the team next year. I think they draft a quarterback like Bryce Young, maybe C.J. Stroud, but I think I like more mobile. I know Richardson and Levis are projects, but I like their mobility more than Stroud's, especially with that Bears O-line. So draft a quarterback. You have them battle it out in training camp. Whoever wins, you just ship the other one away. And I know it's kind of weird because then you can't grab a top guy who's not a quarterback in this draft. You can't get your Will Anderson. You can't get your Jalen Carter. But still, I mean, you could see who is the best fit for your team. Like I said, Fields had a great year on the ground. Still some questions about his arm. Maybe you have Bryce Young and him battle it out and see who that best guy is.
Yeah, I don't hate it necessarily, but I think the beauty of draft night is it can show where your franchise is heading, the direction your franchise is heading. And the Bears are clearly a rebuilding team. I mean, number 1 pick in the draft this year, worst record in the entire NFL. So to move, if you're going to move Fields, if that's the route we're going to go down, eventually, your theory of doing, having a QB battle, I'm not a fan of it. If you're going to move Fields, I would do it now to get as many picks as possible and commit to the rebuild and start to surround Bryce Young, if that's who you're going to take at 1, or that's who you're going to take as your quarterback, with, some weapons and younger weapons. So I don't hate that idea, but I would make that move. If you're going to make any move, I'd make that move on draft night.
Yeah, drafting a quarterback would definitely ruffle some feathers in that Bears organization. Would it be crazy? Yes. But would it be fun? Also, yes. So that'll be a very interesting move by Chicago. We'll move on to their last option that we believe they have. And it's the option that we all agree with, that almost everyone else agrees with. We hope the Bears agree with it as well. Some variation of trading back. So Freeman, I mean, the pros and cons, we just don't weigh them here for the Bears.
I'm really not seeing any cons. If you trade back, there's so many ways that the Bears could trade back here. You could see them trading back and still winding up with one of the best, defense players in the draft, being Will Anderson or Jalen Carter. I could see them trading back, 3 times, 4 times, and really getting a haul of picks, in exchange for this number 1 pick. And I can see them trading back only a couple times to get a stud in this draft, a top 10, top 15 pick, and still getting a bit of a haul in draft picks. So this is clearly the way to go. This is how you rebuild your team, but also, get some draft picks for your future.
Well,
yeah, no, I mean, Freeman said it best. I mean, you just got to trade back. Just keep on, trying to build. This is going to be big rebuild for the Bears. I mean, there's a lot they need to fix. Luckily they do have a sound quarterback. At least we're pretty sure that he's going to be a franchise quarterback. They have a lot of roster spots they need to fill. I mean, they're going to be rebuilding for a while. I say they just keep on trading back, get the draft capital, and find a good player, maybe in a later first round.
Jack?
Yeah, I think the best scenario for them is to trade back with the Colts. You don't want to go too far. You don't want to miss out on Anderson or Carter. But I just think that's the best variation. Me personally, they should be trading back no matter what, because you have to get some value out of this. Your team is so bad right now. That's why they have the worst record in the league. I think they have to get something back from that first round, that first pick in the draft. So you really have to start building your team.
Yeah, I know we mentioned that they have 3 options going into this draft, but if you really want to look at the specifics, I think they have 6 options. We're gonna touch on them, but I think their top 3 options out of those 6 involve some variation of trading back, whether it's trading back a couple of picks with the Colts, maybe even the Texans, whether it's trading back around the top 10 and still getting a solid guy, or whether it's just trading back as far as you can imagine and just hauling up the picks and maybe even some players. And I think those are their best options. I mean, they need multiple guys. A superstar would be great for them, but it's still one player out of 22. Like we said, they have so many holes, so many weaknesses that they need to try and fill, that getting a lot of solid pieces around a guy like Justin Fields, I think would benefit them greatly. And Freeman, I'll throw it to you next for if you were the GM of the Chicago Bears, what exactly would you do come draft night?
Yeah, I have a very specific plan for the Chicago Bears. First, I would trade back with the Colts. Colts are clearly in need of a quarterback. It allows them to move up to 1. And then you're still in a power position at number 4, because there will be quarterbacks on the board and there will be a high-level defensive player on the board. Then at 4, I would trade back again to number 9 with the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers have already expressed a lot of interest in Anthony Richardson. That would allow them to move up and take him. And then you're sitting very comfy at 9. You're able to select a guy who's a top-tier prospect who will help your team immediately and have a haul of picks for the next few years. So I would trade back with the Colts, then trade back with the Panthers. And when you're sitting at 9, I would draft Nolan Smith out of Georgia. He's just a hugely important prospect for the Georgia Bulldogs last year. I mean, you couldn't really see it because he tore his ACL last year. He was out for the year. But if you cut his film from 2021, he's a polished player. He showed out at the combine, so that ACL clearly is not hindering him too much. And that would be the clear pick for me at number 9 to rejuvenate that defense.
And Freeman, just a quick question before we move on. When you do those multiple trade backs, are you looking for actually, I got a couple questions. Are you looking for picks this year or as well as in future? And also, are you even looking for some players that are packaged in there?
I think players, if it's the right players, then they can be thrown in there. But mostly it's for picks, because this is a completely rebuilding team. You want some young stars that you think will fit your organization best. So that's why I would go for draft picks primarily. And yeah, I think that for this year, you could get some picks in return for this year, but mostly for next year and the year after, because there's just, if you're trading from 1 to 4, then 4 to 9, there's only so many other spots you can get into the first round in. So I would probably sit at 9, being their only first round pick for this year, and then for the next couple of years, be loaded with first rounders.
I'm going to agree with you actually for a different reason there. I think that it's going to be very fun, and we're going to cover so much of it. But this year's draft, it isn't a all-timer. This isn't 2020. This isn't 2017. Like, it's a good draft, but man, you got guys next year and the year after that. Those drafts should be stacked. So I think stocking up on picks for the next couple of years might be their best bet, especially with your plan of action there. So, Will, I'll throw it to you next for what you would do in the Bears front office.
Yeah, no, I think everybody's going to start off the same thing. Kick it off. We're going to trade back with Indianapolis. Just seen a lot of different mock drafts, actually, with all 3 of them having the Colts trade up. One for C.J. Stroud, 2 for Anthony Richardson. So, there's that. But I also think they trade back again with Carolina, as Freeman said. And, I like to, mix it up a little bit. And as crazy as this sounds, Jacksonville is in dire need of help at the cornerback position. it is a reach. It is a big jump from 25 to 9. But if they could trade up and get a guy like Witherspoon or Gonzalez, that would definitely make them a contention for the Super Bowl at least. I mean, that makes their defense just so much better. And I know you think I'm crazy, but their offense performed at an exceeding level. Now, at that position, they have capital. They could do one or two. They could do one of two things. They could hold on to that capital and just draft at 25. They can get guys like Osiris Jones, who I really think they need help at that O-line position. Broderick Jones, he's not the best, but different guys who they need O-lineman help. Fields sacked the most of any quarterback, even though he's a very mobile guy. He's getting hit in the backfield a lot. So I think that's their number one target. Another thing is Atlanta is kind of looking dead in the middle of the water at the 8 pick. Them trading back doesn't, it kind of is very reasonable. So I wouldn't be surprised if they try to, pull a ton of strings at the same time and take the draft capital that they get from one place, send a couple picks over to Atlanta, and try to grab a good player at 8.
Yeah, well, I'll ask you the same question I asked Freeman. What type of capital are you looking for? What type of assets? I mean, you're doing 3 different trades, which might be making history for a team at the number 1 position. So what type of assets are you looking for in those 3 trades?
Yeah, well, I mean, you got to look at the teams we're trading for. And we're trading back with the Colts, who they have assets that are, players who could perform, but they come with a cap hit. A lot of the Colts players are either about to get paid or being paid a good amount already. So I think you're going to mainly get capital from the Colts. You're really not going to get much more. From the Panthers, there's a very, very good chance you do get players. There's guys who have, requested trades in before. Remember DJ Moore, who at the trade deadline was asking to be moved, had an amazing season after that. I don't know if a little awakening happened, but he would definitely fit very well with Fields. Not saying PJ Walker's anywhere resemblance in Fields, but they seem to work out. And then, I mean, Jacksonville trading back, they really don't have much, I guess, extra guys that they could be moved or guys they really want to move in the contending spot they are. So with Jacksonville, I definitely think could be an absolute load of picks. Seeing something like their first round this year, I don't think they would give up, their second round for this year. I think they would go into next year and give another first round. But really, for those, I as a Bears GM, will be looking for capital. As you said, the draft this year is weak. The draft next year is probably one of the best we're going to have in years. So try to get capital for the years to come and keep on rebuilding.
Go ahead, Jack.
I just have a question for Will. Like, you're talking about like in the Bears GM position, but let's just like turn around and look at the Jaguars. Like they're a team of now, right? I think they want to win in the next 3 years, and trading up that much, like that's at least 16 picks or something for a guy like Witherspoon or Gonzalez. And then you think about it, the free agency cornerback is very good this year. They could trade for Jalen Ramsey for those picks. Like, I think, do you see them like trading up that high for Witherspoon and Gonzalez?
Yeah, no, you mentioned that there's a lot of guys going on the market. Like there's, Stephon Gilmore might be moved, Ramsey. So there's obviously a lot like that. But I mean, at the same time, you look at it, you say they're a win now team, but the Jaguars are very young. They are. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, he's still on his rookie deal. Etienne, I mean, basically all their O-line, a ton of their defensive players. So it would go along with them, but bringing in a vet does help. Bring back Ramsey to the Jaguars, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did it. It is definitely a shot in the dark. It is kind of a little obscure. It probably has never really happened in the draft, but try to mix things up. And if the Bears could pull it off, I feel like if the Bears were to trade back that far, they would kind of have to not ask for as much, basically, because they're almost the one going out, like saying they would probably be the ones calling Jacksonville, saying like, "Hey, like we need more picks." So I don't think the Bears will be able to get as much capital as they want. So depending on a bunch of different factors, it is and isn't a good move for the Jaguars.
Yeah, so I mean, you talk about fun on draft night. Like you said, it might have not even happened ever in the history
No,
of the league,
I don't
especially
think.
from the one position.
I don't think it's gonna. I probably won't happen, but I'm saying if I this is what I would do if I was the Bears GM.
In theory, I can't disagree with it, but it is a lot to go down on one day. We'll see. We'll see what happens, though. I mean, if that happens, I think there's gonna be a lot of happy Bears fans. At least I would be happy if I was a Bears fan. Jack, I'll move it over to you for what you would do in the Bears front office.
I think this is the best move for the Bears and the Colts. I think the Colts need their QB, and I think Bears should trade back, get some capital, and also get, Carter or Anderson, since it's a 50-50 shot which one you're going to get. But the reason I think the Colts are going to trade up is just Jim Irsay. I mean, he all out said he wanted Bryce Young. He's definitely set his eyes on him, or he's looking at other people. He definitely wants a QB up. And we know Jim Irsay, he's a strange fellow, right? When he puts his eyes on somebody, he puts his eyes on somebody, and he also basically runs that team. But what I think the mock trade would be for that, in my opinion, to the 4 pick, I don't think the Bears would do anything more with it. I think they'd stick there. You got to look back in the archives. You got to look back what the Colts did for Carson Wentz. They traded a 3rd rounder and a 2nd rounder that almost turned into a 1st rounder. It was this close. Like, that was a horrible trade, looking back at it. Chris Ballard looks like he will do anything for what he wants. So I think in the mock trade, the Colts will somehow trade their other 1st-round pick the next year. That's what I see them doing.
So you're saying they're going to trade pick 4 and the 1st-round pick for 2024?
Yes, I think that's what the Colts would do for the 1st pick.
So I mean, Will, I'll go straight to you, the notable Colts fan. What would your feelings be on that if that happens?
I got to start off by saying I do feel honored for gaining the title notable Colts fan. It's been long fought for, but we're here. It's really not that it doesn't really hold too much weight because they are terrible. But no, I mean it does kind of make sense. If for a couple of different reasons, you trade up and you get a quarterback. He's not going to be there's a very slim chance. There's not many quarterbacks who have been successful first year. Dating back to Andrew Luck was very successful his first year, but we all know he was different. So it's hard to look in the future and expect the Colts to not have a top 10 pick next year, especially with how they played. And I do think next year is going to be a complete dump year for the Colts. That's why I'm a little shaky. They have a lot of guys. I mean, so many. I think there's about 8 to 10 guys who need like major contracts given to them. Between Jonathan Taylor, basically their whole O-line, a lot of the D-backs. It's a mess. So I don't think they do trade their 1st pick. I think they actually see how much value. The Colts are a very good drafting team, except for last year. So I do think they're going to trade like their 1st pick this year, their 2nd pick, and probably like a 4th or a 3rd. They are going to go all out if they do. They're going to have to, but I doubt they trade a 1st round, especially looking into next year. I don't even think they would go and tap into the next year.
Yeah, I mean, like Jack said, when Jim Irsay gets his eyes on something and he wants it, then he's going to get it. I'll talk about my pick real quick. It's completely agreeing with Jack. I think they trade back too far. I think the Colts trade up to 1. I'll talk a little bit more on the Colts. Not that I'm comparing Bryce Young to these guys, but hey, I mean, we saw them take quarterbacks at the top of the draft. We saw Andrew Luck. We saw Peyton Manning. Maybe there's some masterminds.
No,
in the Colts front. Maybe they know. Maybe they know something that we don't. Maybe that's the case, Will. But that we'll have to see. For the Bears case, I think being at 4, I think it's just a toss-up between Anderson and Carter. Like I said before, I would take Carter. I would even take Carter at 1 if they stayed there. If they could somehow get him at 4, which I don't think they'd be able to. That would be incredible. But Anderson is so close to Carter as well that I think it's a great scenario for them. I don't like them trading back too far, but I like them getting some picks as well as getting arguably the best player in the draft. So, Will, I think I interrupted you while you were trying to interrupt me.
No, I was trying to interrupt you. I just was even though you pointed out, it hurts, Andrew Luck and Peyton Manning to Bryce Young, man. That's it's a rough comparison. It's a rough comparison.
You never know. You never know what Irsay is a criminal. He's an insane person. We'll say that. But sometimes he's going to do something right.
Jack? I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I just want to say something real quick. Like if they do make the Colts trade, and Friedman's talking about, and Will's talking about, trading back. The only way I see them trading back with like that fourth pick is the Panthers or the Commanders, who just got Eric Bieniemy and are probably looking at Anthony Richardson for him and Bieniemy to duel up, and that would be amazing.
It really would be. I mean, and like I said, they have to do something right soon. Well,
Yeah, I think actually isn't a bad idea. Also, I was thinking about that, but I also have been a little skeptical about if the Commanders. So I don't think they would be trading up for a quarterback. But say they do, they say they trade up. I think it's a great spot for the Bears to be. I mean, you can get guys like Paris Johnson, you can get guys like Dalton Kincaid, like guys who could really be absolute playmakers. I mean, who knows if Jackson Smith-Njigba drops back, but I mean, I like where they would be at 16. I think that's kind of the best spot for them.
all right, so it should be really fun to see what the Bears have planned. If they stay at 1, do they have a quarterback battle looming in Chicago? Do they trade back 3 different times and make draft night history? We'll have to see. That's going to do it for our inaugural episode, we'll call it, for Joe's Knows the NFL Draft. Be sure to stay tuned later on this week. Our positional rankings begin. The top 5 quarterbacks we're going to be going over our consensus rankings. There's going to be some heated debates. I can already imagine on that one. So be sure to tune in once again later this week. That'll be going up. But that's going to do it for this episode. For Matt Friedman, Will Kukowski, Jack Kemler, I've been Ben Chowder. Thanks for tuning in.